The other part that's been interesting is how much misinformation is actually out there. And the question of how did we get going down this path where not only were we led to believe that a glass of red wine a day could be beneficial to you and actually encouraged, we seem like we're reversing course on some of those statements. And so maybe my starting question is, how did we get off track into believing there were actually benefits to alcohol?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really pleased to hear you frame it that way. I actually would frame it slightly differently where we are now, is that it's
Okay.
been tested that, and there's rival threads, and there's big influences from people who make alcohol and fund research, and there's people independent of that who would disagree with my take, which is that
Hmm.
the health benefits have been, at best exaggerated and are probably non-existent. I would say the mainstream view is now moving towards them being weak or non-existent, but there are holdouts, and some are very strong holdouts and very influential holdouts. And I think you'll hear more about this in the US in the coming year. But the beginning of the health benefits, well, you could go back to ancient Greece. I could give you
Okay.
a quote from Pliny the Elder that something to the effect that medical opinion is divided as to whether alcohol harms more people than it helps, or
Huh.
something to that effect. I think we've had if you look at the Bible, apparently there's an equal number of references to alcohol being good for you as bad for you. We are very conflicted about alcohol in our society because we embrace it in so many celebrations and it's so much ingrained, at least in Western culture, in our way of
Right.
life. There's a pretty hard message to take that actually this substance in it, ethanol, let's just call it, let's name it ethanol, is the chemical compound in there that does the harm. It also intoxicates and gives pleasure. That we're now learning so much about the cancer risk. When we drink ethanol, when alcohol with ethanol in it, it changes into a thing called acetaldehyde. Now, if you test the effect of ethanol on human tissue, it damages it. And so there's an issue of replicating the DNA accurately. But if you look at acetaldehyde, that's way more powerful than ethanol. But, ethanol becomes acetaldehyde. Every time we drink, alcohol comes through our digestive system being metabolized into acetaldehyde, which will literally burn human tissue that it comes in contact with. The body then has to repair itself. And if you repeat that over and over again, drink, burn, repair, drink, burn, repair, they will become a failure to replicate. The DNA will not replicate, and that's when
Got it.
tumors can occur.
It's even moderate drinking. This is where, with that damage to the DNA, it actually could end up causing cancer and all
Yes.
kinds of cancer, not just liver cancer.
Yes, cancer of the mouth, the throat, the esophagus, the stomach, the rectum, the colon. Breast is a huge issue. I mean, there's different proportions of these cancers caused by alcohol. I think cancer of the mouth is up there at about between 30 and 40% are alcohol caused. Um, the further down through the digestive system it gets low. I think breast cancer, the estimate about 15% of breast cancer deaths and illnesses will be alcohol attributable in the US.
Let's talk about the impact of drinking. And you're at a point where you're saying, three drinks a week it's not ideal, but it's not horribly threatening or damaging. And what are we talking about in terms of likely causes of cancer from alcohol, diminished life expectancy? What is the actual threat that we are talking about here? And at
So,
what levels?
so there's a group I really respect in Toronto, the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health, Jürgen Rem, Kevin Shield. They've crunched the numbers on this using what they call an absolute risk approach. And so consider this all cause mortality stuff I was talking about. You look at death from all causes. They identified 20 ways, proven ways alcohol can kill you. And there's like 7 cancers, there's various strokes, there's various kinds of injury, liver diseases. Obviously, there's a range of nasty things that alcohol can do to you. They plotted from the best available studies the risk of each of those outcomes according to how much people drink, men and women. and they get the best reviews that synthesize that evidence. They put it, they put all these data in, turn the handle, and they estimate the risk of dying prematurely from an alcohol cause according to how much a person drinks. And
Okay.
expressing it when I say absolute risk, that means something that can be converted into life expectancy. So they could calculate at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drinks a week your risk of dying from an alcohol-related cause, and what the impact that would have for the average person on their life expectancy. They said 2 drinks a week, your risk of dying from an alcohol-related cause over your lifetime, if you drink 2 drinks, up to 2 drinks a week, was 1 in 1,000.
Okay.
That's small, but they called that low risk. And there's various public health scientists refer to that high bar, 1 in 1,000 increased lifetime risk, as low risk. Personally, I would give it another name. I'd say tiny. Or I think a lot of people listening, a 1 in 1,000 increased risk over your life. If you repeat this behavior every day or every week, 2 drinks a week.
Yep.
Most countries have done these guidelines. They've put a 1 in 100 increased risk, because for personal behaviors, we tend to give ourselves a little latitude. But if you go 1 in 100 increased risk, a 1% increased risk of dying from alcohol-related cause, that's at 6 drinks a week. And you were talking about life expectancy. That's about 11 weeks of life expectancy for the average person. 6 drinks a week. So people can get their head around that. I think it's useful, although it is
Yep.
misleading because it doesn't mean it applies to everybody. I mean, some people might die
But this
tomorrow.
is, you made the point, it's average.
It's average. Yeah, yeah. So that's trying to give a scale. And the 1 in 1,000 risk, it's about 2 or 3 days life expectancy.
So
It's not
that's
much.
if you're doing 2 drinks a week. And then if
Yes,
you say, I think you're going and saying now, if you say, well, I can't only make it, I need to have a drink every night except Sunday, we're up to our 6 drinks.
yes, yes.
And
That's 1 in 100, and it's equivalent for the average person of about 11 weeks of lost life expectancy, according to the way these calculations have been done. And obviously, a lot of assumptions put in there. Well, they're evidence-based assumptions. They've impartially reviewed the entire scientific literature to identify the 20 causes of death that are indisputably related to alcohol, and then done their best to estimate the degree of the risk for each one of those for different levels of drinking.
so at that level, I think you've set the framework for folks so they at least have some idea of what they're dealing with and what the trade-offs may be.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean, because you talked about it being the average, it doesn't mean that there aren't some notable exceptions, and you'll
Yes.
see somebody showing up in the newspaper that's 100 years old that
Yeah.
constitutes their thinks about their longevity to their glass of wine and cigarette every day. And so when you see somebody that says, I drink twice a day and it's been great for me, where does that fit into the mix?
It fits perfectly, because, as you said, it's an average, and we humans are very different. We have different constitutions, and we are at risk of different diseases according to our genetic inheritance and our lifestyles. And alcohol just adds a little tweak to this broad spectrum of risk and protection that applies to every individual, and we are all different. And so, if we get 10,000 people, one of these studies, we can give a statistic for the probability of an outcome and estimate the average death at which somebody will succumb to an alcohol-related disease. But yeah, people live. I mean, the Queen Mother, what a wonderful example. I don't really remember, it's probably not as familiar to people in the States, but you can tell I'm from Britain. She lived
Yep.
to 100. Maybe it was 101. I think it might have been 101. Anyway, she had about a quarter of a bottle of gin, I believe. She liked her gin and tonics, and she smoked, I think it was silk cut cigarettes. Shouldn't be using brand
She had a
names.
quarter bottle of gin, a what?
Gin and tonic. She would. I think a day. I think she had a few gin and tonics a day, and she
All
smoked.
right.
And she smoked.
She sounds like she'd have been fun to hang out with.
Yeah, well, that's the deal. Because the other thing with alcohol, it is something we do when it helps us be lively, and interact and socialize and it makes us feel we have fun. But that wears off. I mean, that's the other
Yes.
thing, doesn't it? It's a buzz you get for maybe half an hour, and then you're probably worse. So we forget the downside when you're flat and boring and can't be bothered.